Well, today we're going to take a look at how you can add $15,000 to $17,000 to your paycheck, to the bottom line every year. We're going to find out how we do that with the fuel surcharge right after this.
Everybody get up.
Hey everybody, it's me, Mark Staite, back here talking with you. Welcome aboard for the final video in the fuel surcharge series, or at least in the series. We discussed fuel surcharge. That's a mighty big number I threw out there, wasn't it? $15,000 to $17,000 a year to your bottom line. That's a lot of money. That's some serious change. Well, today we're going to tear into how you maximize your profits, and also discuss a little bit of fuel strategy as well, and why that's important to your operation as a lease operator or owner operator, because it can and does make a difference on the bottom line every year. I'm pretty sure you can figure out a way, or someplace in your life where you can use an extra $15,000 a year. I'm sure you do. I know I do. So, all right, one last time, just to cover it one more time, we're going to throw up the formula right down here on the bottom again of what the fuel surcharge is, and we're going to use the numbers from this week, matter of fact, the National Fuel Price Index. There we go. See the number? There it is. The average price of diesel minus the driver protection point, which is $1.20, gives us the result. Divide that result by 6 miles to the gallon, and that gives us our fuel surcharge. Okay. I highly recommend you grab a piece of paper and a pen and get ready to write down some notes, because the bulk of this is just going to be comparing in this formula the things we can control, the things we can't control. Okay? Let's start off with the biggest impact, which is what we can control in this formula is right over here at the end of it, down here. See this 6.6 miles to the gallon? We can control that. Today we're going to play with that number. All right? Let's go ahead and put up a graphic here, and we'll start working at it this way. On a hypothetical 1,200 mile trip, okay, a 1,200 mile trip, let's say it's from somewhere in Texas to somewhere in South Carolina. Okay, let's throw up the formula again. Today's or this week's national price index, diesel price index, is $2.87 a gallon. Okay, so we got that down. Minus the $1.20 gives us $1.67 per gallon. Divide by 6 equals a fuel surcharge this week of 0.278 cents per mile. Now, if we multiply that 0.278 cents per mile times a 1,200 mile trip, we come out with a total revenue or total fuel surcharge that's collected from the customer of $333.60. Okay, so that number is pretty much standard for this week. On a 1,200 mile trip, we're going to collect $333.60 based on the standard National Fuel Price Index. Now, let's take a column here, and you'll notice the 6 miles per gallon. Let's see what that looks like realistically on a trip. At 6 miles per gallon, on a 1,200 mile trip, we're going to need to purchase 200 gallons of fuel. Let's multiply that by the average price of diesel, which is $2.87. So the total amount of money we're going to spend is $574 ballpark. I'm going to round some numbers up here so we're not dealing with pennies. We need on a 1,200 mile trip, if our truck gets 6 miles to the gallon, we're going to need to purchase $574 of diesel. Well, let's subtract out that fuel surcharge of $333. And what's coming out of our pocket on a 1,200 mile trip is $241. Okay, see how that works? We got that there? Excellent. Now let's take a look at, I said, the miles per gallon is what we can change. So what does it look like if we get better than 6 miles to the gallon? Now let's go back to it, take a look at it. It's 7 miles per gallon into that same 1,200 mile trip. That's 172 gallons of fuel to do the same distance. Now let's multiply by the average price of diesel. We're going to buy $493 of diesel. Subtract out the fuel surcharge money collected, $333. We're going to be $160 out of pocket if we get 7 miles to the gallon. We just improve our MPG by 1 mile per gallon, and already we've got money that we're saving. Because remember, when it comes to operating your truck, it's not a game. The game of an owner op or lease op is not how much do you make, it's how much of that money do you get to keep. Okay? That's 7 miles per gallon. Let's take a look at 8 miles per gallon. So if we increase our MPG, if we get from 6 to 8, which is very easy to do in these new trucks, that same 1,200 mile trips, or same 1,200 mile trip at 8 miles per gallon, we only need to buy 150 gallons of fuel. Again, multiplied by the average price, $2.87. We're going to spend $430 on diesel. Let's subtract out the fuel surcharge revenue the customer gave us. Out of pocket is only $97. Big difference. Take a look at it again now. Let's look at the 6 mile per gallon. That's $241 out of your pocket if you do the trip with the hammer down and get 6 miles to the gallon. Or if you slow down a little bit, watch your shifting, watch how you pull the hills, and get 8 miles per gallon, you're only going to come out of pocket for $97. It really is that simple. Okay, so we just took a look there at one of the biggest ways that you can impact how much you get to keep of the fuel surcharge versus the diesel that you buy. Okay? Increase your MPG. Now, these newer trucks, like a Freightliner Cascadia Evolution with the Detroit Diesel 15, if you get them set up right, these trucks are very easily, can do up to 9, above 9 miles per gallon, quite easily. They really can. So, you know, $241 versus $97, that's just one trip. That's a 2-day trip. And you've saved ballpark what? About $150? Because you didn't have to spend that on fuel just simply because you want to go fast? I don't know about you, but if I could put an extra $150 in my pocket every trip by not, wasting fuel, more power to me. Now, there is another part of this formula that you can control, okay? And that's the price that you pay for diesel. Okay. Now, in that last example, we looked at 6, 7, 8 miles per gallon, but we also used the National Fuel Price Index, which was $2.87 average. Okay. What if we purchase fuel cheaper than the $2.87? Let's take a look and see what those numbers look like. Let's go back to the graph. We'll put all 6, 7, 8 miles per gallon. We'll break this down again. Okay. At 6 miles per gallon, I'm actually using a real price for fuel on this next example, okay, and I'll show you where we get this at, okay. Let's say instead of paying $2.87 for fuel, we pay $2.27, so $2.27 a gallon versus $2.87. Again, multiplied by the 200 gallons, $454 minus the fuel surcharge collected. Now, being that we purchased fuel at a cheaper price, we're coming less out of pocket. Only $121 are coming out of pocket. 7 miles per gallon, let's put that number up. Now we're out of pocket only $57. 8 miles per gallon at $2.27 on a fill up. $2.27 per gallon on a fill up. We're only out of pocket $7. A 1,200 mile trip, purchasing cheap fuel at $2.27 a gallon. I'm only out of pocket, if I get 8 miles per gallon on that trip, I'm only out of pocket $7. That's a big impact, isn't it? That's a really big impact. Okay, Mark, how the hell did you find fuel at $2.27? Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. Fuel purchasing strategy, you've got to keep that in mind. Okay, and one of the biggest tools that I use is actually a website. It's not an application, it's an actual website. Okay, and I'm going to show that to you next week when it comes to fuel purchasing strategy. And my #1 website that's free on how you can plan your fuel purchasing on any given trip, no matter where you are in the country, to any other destination in the country. Okay? Now, that's coming up next Friday. I'm going to show that to you. Fuel purchasing strategies coming up next Friday. So go back, take a look at those numbers I just showed you, and you'll see, if you do the math, the difference between 6 miles to the gallon and 8 miles to the gallon. Optimized between the two, you're going to find you're going to add about a little over $17,000 to your bottom line if you purchase the cheap fuel on every trip through the entire year, and you increase your MPGs. Okay? Stay tuned for next Friday. Fuel purchasing strategy. My number one tools that I use about 2 or 3, and I'll show all of them to you. Okay? We're going to put more money in your pocket, whether you like it or not. That does it for me. I'll see you guys next Friday. Let's get out of here.